So, what can I do for you?
Well, it's rather embarrassing, so I guess I'll just start from the beginning. You know, you have to know, I tend to get really anxious as soon as there's some sort of new obstacle in my career. Like, I could take the smallest thing and overthink it to the point of lunacy.
Xanax?
What?
Nothing, continue.
Right, so I kind of have a way to deal with that.
But that's great, isn't it?
Temporarily.
I thought you mentioned that you share no past with any sort of substance abuse.
I don't. It's actually far worse than that. So
Oh.
I'm kind of an artist and YouTuber, or videographer is the term I like to use, so people take me more serious. But I had a lot of ups and downs, you know, posting content on the internet. I've been here for around 6 years, mostly posting art, I have to say. So I'm still kind of fresh to this whole YouTube game, you know. I only started doing that like 2 years ago. Point is, the past year felt like I was running on a treadmill with broken legs in a fog thicker than the one in Silent Hill.
So in other words, you're saying you feel like there's no light at the end of the tunnel? You're feeling hopeless, is that correct?
Well, this is kind of what I'm getting is, you know what, I'll just skip forward. So, I don't make my work for materialistic success, right?
Yeah, right.
I make my work because I love it. But that does not mean I don't care about its reception. So, my last video, and just for your information, at its release I had around 2,000 subscribers. So that's something, right?
Correct.
Well, I had a lot of videos that performed absolutely horrible, despite me putting an abnormal amount of effort into it. But you know what? That's fine. That's what I signed up for. But this last video, Mr. Therapist.
Erickson, my name is
This
Erickson.
last video, Eric, had a flopping 46 views.
Eric.
Just so you understand, I could stick 2 pencils in an orange, throw it out my window, call the video Flying Johnny, and I promise you it would get more attention than that.
That is quite...
I spent 7 days working on this just so I could have my 5 neighbors and their kids watch my video.
More.
Eric, I feel like I'm being trolled by a 9-year-old Fortnite player.
It's okay. Let's just first calm down, okay?
Apologies, I just have high blood pressure and I barely have slept the last few nights because I had another
slept?
crash out about Big Brother IG. And I'm just so tired. You know, trying to be somebody on these platforms feels like playing Russian roulette with 6 bullets.
Have you ever thought about taking another route? I'm not speaking of quitting per se, but
Eric, you don't
it's still
understand.
Erickson.
Eric, I love it.
I'm sorry, I don't follow. What, making videos?
Losing. Every time I fall down on my knees with these 3 big pipes inside my ass, I feel more alive than ever.
But why?
What do you mean? What, Eric, what the f***? You're supposed to know the answer, or at least help me figure it out. That's why I'm here.
Jimmy, I work with a bunch of broken people for a living. Do you think any sane person would voluntarily walk inside this pit of darkness?
You're not saying.
Yes!
Once upon a time, when I was 13 years old, I laid my hands upon a game that wasn't like any other, and not particularly in a good way. I booted up my PlayStation 3 and played for approximately 2 hours. In that time, I managed to accumulate more deaths in this game alone than in all the ones I played before that combined. It was very odd, since I was an experienced player. Usually, if you made an error, you got some sort of room to breathe. Here, every mistake was punished brutally. Although, what was even more fascinating than my death count was the fact that, despite losing an incredible amount of times, I continued moving forward. I was confused because normally we associate all kinds of negative things with failure. Here it felt like I was almost looking forward to it. Every time I got my face smashed in by Papa Smelter Demon's sword, it felt invigorating, for I came back stronger. Or at least that's how I gaslit myself until I actually beat him. But when I did beat him, I could proudly say that I was indeed stronger. And that very experience could be described as a short burst of ecstasy. I actually never took drugs, so I wouldn't know, but it sounds awesome. Funny enough, I thought it would all end with the final boss of this video game, until I started to see a parallel of set mentality in my everyday life. It was more than just quote-unquote never give up. I was no longer afraid to fail, for I knew that inside of it was the very key to success. The pain of losing still stinks and sometimes leaves you greatly agitated, but because you understand that trial and error does work, you continue and eventually come out victorious. It's designed in a way that you are forced to face your shortcomings, to avoid failing at given obstacle repeatedly. Perhaps you're somebody who tends to panic, or maybe you're playing it way too safe and let all these opportunities to dish out damage pass you by. And since there are no difficulty adjustments, you can't rely on anybody but your own ability to make it work. What makes this so addictive is your gradual improvement curve through those consistent efforts. You are not necessarily just better because you received more powerful gear, like learning some sort of new ability, pressing one button and just destroying everything in your way, but because you have also grown as a player. So why then, with all these positive aspects, is it a cursed blessing?
What the f is that boss fight?
You okay? I heard screaming.
What in the holy nuke is this?
Oh.
What the, Jimmy, do not look far, I have ventured into the pit of darkness.
What the f?
I have called upon the goddess of bleed and summoned my cousin Buff Larry from the deepest layer of the abyss. What the f is this?
Look, man, you don't gotta explain yourself to me.
I was left weak by failure, prone to vices of an easy life.
Brother, it's just a game.
I have spent the last 3 days fighting this stupid bitch. I no longer own a job. I'm about to be kicked out of my house. And I haven't eaten a proper meal since dawn has pierced the blue shade of the night sky. What do you mean? It's just a game.
Alright, okay. But why?
Jimmy, you must... Why? Because it's possible. To lay down the controller means accepting defeat, and I'm not ready to do that.
I get where you're coming from. You don't want to throw in the towel, but what's the point in wasting your life away if you get nothing out of it but a meaningless victory? Like, when's the last time you had any fun?
A cursed blessing. A scale tipping left and right. Each day one side outweighs the other. I'm somebody who tries to avoid looking at metrics at all times. Have I posted a video back then on my TikTok? I dreaded it to open the app and take a glance at the performance. It's like a knot in my stomach that seems to never unwind, or at least when it does, it is only temporarily. At first my line of satisfaction started in the 100s, but eventually went all the way up to the multiple thousands and millions of views. Every time I've risen, so did my standards. You get used to a certain result, and anything that lays below that line, despite having brought you joy once, now feels like a blow to the gut. It's like beating a boss for the first time. The moment you conquer it, you feel fantastic. Should you decide to do a second, third, or even fourth run and fight the fiend again, I doubt your experience will be the same. Now, making videos here for a little over 2 years now is a different kind of challenge. A 15-second video that took a total of 5 brain cells to make is nowhere close to a scripted, fully structured, and creative 12-minute video. I run into a problem such as my issues with doubt, not feeling enough, or look at something simple as my experiences with friendship. I do a complete objective analysis of my life in correlation to given theme. Why is this like that? Is this good? Bad? Perhaps taking those 2 terms out of the equation completely will help me get closer to the answer. And so I basically try to find that answer and see how I can convey given answer in the most creative and entertaining way possible, to show and potentially help other people with what has worked for me. Now, having posted one of those videos, I eventually have to review the performance, and I'd like you to imagine the feeling I described with TikTok earlier, but turned up 10 folds. My level of satisfaction is currently at the 1000 mark, and seeing the 46 views on my last video, a video I consider to be one of my best yet, knocked me out for a whole day. I basically came home from work and was just playing Expedition 33 like a wasted drunk until midnight, despite having to already write the next video. Now, where does one get the motivation to continue, especially if this is not the first instance? That Saturday was probably the first time in my life where I seriously thought about quitting everything. But waking up the next day, the Dark Souls mentality has taken over once again. Although you do wonder how much is too much. And I'll tell you, as soon as your suffering outweighs your growth, or in other words, your effort seems to have no validation since your reward is zero, again and again and again. Hence, you burn out. So to avoid or more so conquer the curse of this seemingly endless ambition, it is important to consistently check and ask yourself why you're doing what you're doing. We sometimes get so caught up in the process of winning that the victory can become more important than the joy, the growth we get out of the fight, or the experience in and of itself. What makes this even worse is that we sometimes get so caught up with winning that we no longer look for the best way to achieve the original goal, but simply at succeeding at what we're currently failing. There might have been 20 other paths that could have helped us progress, yet we are so caught up, so blinded by our quote-unquote incompetence to make something work, that we fall into despair and end up beating our head repeatedly against this concrete wall. When the actual devil lays in wasting your entire life away feeling like an unhappy, miserable nobody, just so you can potentially reach X thing. The curse lays in forgetting what is important to us, and walking the road as a blind man. Should you no longer wish to progress in a given field, feeling the spark diminish, the flame fade, there's no shame in stepping away. So, know when your ambition turns into a parasite, for it is no longer a blessing. To rekindle the flame comes with a sacrifice. Make sure it doesn't go to waste.